Well, here we are again to bring you another exciting story. And today Aunt Sue is going to tell a second chapter of one called, Hidden Money?
That's right, Uncle Dan.
And now here is Aunt Sue with a story for today called
Death in Exchange for Life.
Many years ago, Emerson Chadwick, an orphan boy, was brought up by distant cousins Lem and Sadie, who forced the boy to call them Ma and Pa. Lem also made the boy give him all the money he earned selling newspapers. As Emerson grew older and made more money, he was able to secretly accumulate over $200, which he kept in a flat tobacco can hidden behind the dresser drawer in his small attic room. Good fortune came his way one day when he discovered a newsstand for sale for only $100.
I'll buy it with 100 of my money. With the other 100, I'll clean up the newsstand and make it into the cleanest and best newsstand in town. Maybe I'll be rich someday.
Elated with his dreams of owning and running his own business, Em hurried home, bounded up the stair steps 2 at a time to his little attic room, and pulled out the dresser drawer.
Where's the can? It's gone! My money, $200, it's gone! I've been saving it for years. Now it's gone. I won't be able to have my newsstand. The lamb took it. He'll drink it all up in a few days. I'm not going to stay in this house another minute. But where will I go? I guess it doesn't make any difference, just as long as I get away from here.
Emerson gathered together his few belongings and stuffed them into an old newspaper bag. Opening his window, he stepped out onto the roof and over to the edge, then shinnied down the porch post to the ground and off along the twilight street without even so much as a backward glance. His dreams of amounting to something were shattered, and his heart was broken. Life meant nothing to him now. His head throbbed as he walked, he knew not where. Suddenly he realized that he was standing on the iron grating in front of the bakery shop where he had stood for so many years hawking newspapers. With a sudden impulse, he turned and went into the bakery shop.
Is Gus downstairs?
No, Em, he isn't in yet.
I'm going to go down and get my clothes, all right?
Sure, Em. Soon Emerson emerged from the bakery shop, completely changed in appearance. He was now wearing the good clothes, the ones he kept hidden in Gus's big baking room. He hated to leave Gus, for Gus had been like a father to him.
I think Gus will miss me, and I will him. But I just got to go someplace away from here.
Emerson made his way to the railroad station and on down the side of a long string of freight cars. Coming to an open car, he glanced around to see if he were being followed, and then quickly climbed in and groped his way to one of its dark corners.
It's starting to move. I don't know where this train's going, and I don't care, just so long as it's away from Dayton. It's getting cold. Maybe I better lie down in the corner and try to sleep. I use my bag of clothes as a pillow.
All through the long night, Emerson sat huddled there. Sleep would not come to him. Occasionally the train slowed for stations, but he made no move. A little before dawn, he fell asleep and slept soundly.
Where am I? Oh, on a freight train. Getting further and further away from Dayton. It's daylight. I better stand up and see where we are. Oh, look at the beautiful country. Hills and fields of corn and wheat. And cattle. Look at all the grass. It's so green. Oh, the train's slowing down. Must be coming to someplace. Say, there's a river. I guess I'll get off and refresh myself. It's going slow enough to jump off. Here goes. Oh, I was lucky I didn't hurt myself. Didn't even get my clothes dirty. That water looks good. Wonder if it's very cold. I gotta wash myself even if it is.
After refreshing himself and tidying up as best he could, Emerson started walking down a nearby country road. His next concern was to find out where he was and how to get something to satisfy his hunger.
There's a nice place, a clean barn and a pretty lawn. Maybe I'll stop there and at least ask where I am. Maybe they'll give me a little to eat if I offer to work for it.
Hello.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Emerson Chadwick.
Oh?
I'm on my way to the next town to see if I can get a job. My mother is dead and I have no home. I'll pull weeds or hoe or even scrub the floor. I'm not afraid of work.
Why, I don't believe you are. You're hungry, is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, the menfolk have already had breakfast and gone to the field, but I'll fix you a snack, young man. You can work afterward. You look as gaunt as a timber wolf. Come on in.
Thank you.
Sit down and rest a while I fire up the stove and get you some eggs and hot cereal. Soon Emerson was eating a fine farm breakfast at a table covered with a crisp, clean tablecloth. His courage rose. Well, now, young man, that your stomach is full, are you still as anxious to work?
Yes, ma'am. That's the only way I can pay for what I ate.
Believe you are an honest young man. Put on those overalls so you won't get those good clothes of yours dirty, and, well, you can hoe and weed the garden. I think that's about the best hoeing that garden ever had. And you're a mighty fine young man. You're looking for a job, you say?
Yes, ma'am, in the next town.
Well, to get there, we'll just keep walking down this road for about half a mile, and then you turn west for a mile, and then turn south and walk another mile, and you'll be in Fabertown.
Ohio?
Indiana. And it's one of the best little towns in southern Indiana, too. I don't doubt for a moment but that you'll get a job there all right. I wish we could afford a hand. We'd take you in a minute. But just be a good boy, Emerson, and God bless you.
Goodbye, Mrs. Tomlin, and thank you for everything.
Emerson's heart had been warmed by the motherly kindness of Mrs. Tomlin. Fabertown was a busy little city, swarming with country trade. The stores were teeming centers of activity, and the streets were full of horses and buggies and wagons. The more Emerson looked around, the better he liked the town. He was looking for some sort of shop or factory where he could get a job when he noticed a sign.
The Fabertown Wood Pattern Works. I think I'd like to work here. Wonder if they have an opening. Wouldn't do any harm to find out. Pardon me, sir.
Yes?
My name is Emerson Chadwick.
Well, what do you want?
Do you have an opening? I want a job.
A job? Why come here?
Because, sir, this is the sort of work I've always wanted to do. I'm all alone, and I gotta earn my own way. You don't have a place for a boy, do you?
Most young men want a job, but they don't want to work.
I'm not afraid of work, sir.
Well, I tell you the truth. I do have an opening for a man. You don't think you could do the work of a man, do you?
No, sir. I probably couldn't at first, but I'd try awful hard. I'd do my very best. I need a job, sir. I'll work. I have no home, so I have to work.
Well, son, I think you'll do. You aren't a braggart, but if you were, I'd send you away. I'll try you. You say you haven't a home.
I don't, sir. I used to live in Dayton, but my own mother and father are dead, so I came here just today.
Write your full name on this paper. You are now one of our employees. Your first job will be to clean up the shavings under the machines.
Yes, sir. You sent for me, sir?
Yes, Emerson. You say you have no home. What are you going to do until you get your first pay?
Well, sir, I don't know exactly.
You plan to find a place here in town.
Yes, sir, but I have no money.
I know of a good, respectable boarding house where you can stay for a reasonable price. You won't have to pay in advance if I vouch for you.
How do you do, Mr. Wrangle? Come in, won't you?
Thank you, Miss Graham, but I just want to introduce a new employee of mine. I thought perhaps you'd keep him until his first payday. I'll vouch for him. This is he, Miss Graham, Emerson Chadwick.
Glad to, Mr. Wrangle. Come in, Emerson. I have one vacant room. A big one on the 3rd floor. A corner room from which you can see all the way down the street. Yeah, I hope you like it here, Emerson. Let me know if there's anything you want.
I'm gonna live in a real house with a decent room of my own. There's a carpet on the floor and a mirror. And look at that bureau and a full-size bed. At last, I'm gonna live, really live, as decent folks do.
At supper time, the kind lady introduced Emerson to the other guests. And when they wanted to know who he was and what he did, he proudly told them,
My name is Emerson Chadwick. I just came from Dayton, Ohio. I'm learning to be a pattern maker at the Pattern Works.
A new era had begun for young Emerson Chadwick. He was accepted by the best people of Fabertown. Before long, he began associating with the young, thrill-seeking, fast crowd and going everywhere the gang went, doing everything they did except drinking. His memory of Cousin Lem and the things he did when under the influence of drink was too vivid to allow that. One night after supper,
What's on tonight, fellas?
There's a poker game over at Ronnie's place. Come on.
Anything worthwhile planned for tonight, fellas?
We're gonna clean out old man Grumpy's orchard.
Oh, that'd be work.
Yeah, but fun, too. We're gonna be regular modern-day Robin Hoods. Pick the trees clean, then leave the apples on the porches of poor people. Of course, we're gonna break the branches of a few trees, too, sort of ruin them.
this didn't help the poor people of town at all, for being in possession of stolen apples got them in trouble with the police. People began to complain about this teenage gang.
Oh, complain about us? That's what makes it fun.
Hey, got anything new for tonight?
You betcha. There's a meeting going on in an old building at the edge of town where the people are going to have a revival. What say we go out there and give them a rough time? Come on.
The boys created such a disturbance at the revival that the meeting was stopped, and some of the men came outside and began looking for the culprits. The gang split, running in all directions.
Hey, wait up there. I want to talk to you.
Yes, sir, officer.
Were you part of the gang that broke up the revival meeting and threw mud balls and made smart remarks? Are you one of those boys? You are. You fellas have been causing trouble all over town with your thieving and meddling. I want to lock you up.
I didn't do anything, officer.
Don't expect me to believe that, do you? Come along. You're going to jail.
That first night in jail was one of agony to Emerson. He didn't sleep a wink all night. In the morning, Mr. Wrangler, his employer, came and gave him a good talking to.
You're a good boy at heart, Em, but you got in with the wrong crowd. If you ever again have anything to do with that lazy, good-for-nothing gang, you're through working for me. Here you sit in jail, just because you thought you had to have thrills, do what other young men were doing. You're entirely different than you were when you first came here. You've picked up some bad habits, and you're using profanity of the worst sort. You think it over. When you get out, if you've decided to give up all this, then, well, come and see me. Your job will be waiting for you.
After Mr. Wrangler left, Emerson paced back and forth in the narrow cell, thinking.
Oh, whatever got into me is more than I can figure. I wanted to amount to something, to be respected. And then I had to go and do this, ending up in jail. Oh, I'm disgusted with myself.
Because this was his first arrest, Emerson was soon released.
I've thought it over, Mr. Wrangler, and, well, I've decided to follow your advice.
Good, Emerson. I'll give you another chance.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Wrangler.
May I just give you one word of advice?
Of course.
My personal opinion is, Emerson, that you need to think about your soul. Go to church. Become a Christian.
I just don't believe in such things, Mr. Wrangler.
You don't? Really?
I look at it this way, Mr. Wrangler. I know people who go to church and people who don't go. Me, for instance. And I found that there are good people who go to church and good people who don't go. Also, I found some awfully bad people who go to church and bad ones who don't go. I can't see any difference between them, so why bother to go?
It's true, Emerson, that every church has its black sheep, but I hardly think that excuses you or me from becoming Christians. I don't think we have the right to doubt the truth of Christianity just because there are unworthy members in the church.
The next 4 years were uneventful for Emerson. He didn't do much except work hard at his job, eat, sleep, and save his earnings. One day he was walking down the street, all business, when he saw a lovely young lady. She was looking at a display of dresses in a store window. He stopped and pretended to be looking at things in the next window, actually peeking at the girl out of the corner of his eye.
Oh, she looks just like I remember Mother looking. Pretty and gentle, yet capable and practical, too. Oh, I've got to meet her. I've just got to. Oh, but how?
At last, at a social gathering, they were introduced. She was dainty, neat, and modest, with a keen, alert mind, and her character was as lovely as her face. So, before long, Emerson Chadwick found himself in love with the beautiful Mary Winton. Her parents liked him, too, for he was now a respected member of the town. He started keeping company with her. One evening, as Emerson was driving Mary home,
Lovely party, don't you think so, Em?
Oh, yes, very lovely, but not nearly as lovely as you, Mary. Oh, I mean it, Mary, really mean it, and I like you, and I guess I'm serious about that, too. Mary, I was wondering if, well, what I mean is
Before you say anything more, Em, may I say something?
Why, of course, Mary.
Well, it's about religion.
Oh,
You don't believe in religion, do you? Or God?
I've never been to church.
You don't want to go to church?
Oh, I've never even thought about going, but if you want me to go, I'll go. Oh, Mary, can't you see that I love you? Oh, I do love you. Mary, will you do me the honor of... well, I love you.
Yes, Emerson, I will marry you.
You will?
I will.
Well, why? Why will you marry me?
Because I just happen to be in love with you.
Oh, you are? Oh, woohoo! Hey, get up there, Prince! Oh, Mary, I'm the happiest man in all the world.
One evening, soon after the happy young couple had moved into their newly purchased home, Emerson came home from work and was met at the door by a beaming Mary.
I had callers today, Em. The neighbor lady next door. She and her eldest son came to see me. I've never talked to a woman like her.
What was her name?
Mrs. McRae.
And why was she so different?
Well, we got to talking about gas buggies and airships, and she said all these things are written in the Bible plain as day. Well, I told her you used to know the Wright brothers real well, and her son was immediately interested. Oh, he must be about 14 or 15, and he just sat there and talked like an adult, as smart and clever as a preacher or a teacher.
Oh, sound like nice neighbors, all right.
In the backyard of the new Chadwick home was a rather large building that in former years had been a spring house. Emerson fitted it into a workshop. He spent many hours there making a beautiful cedar chest bound with brass bands and cornet cupboards, all for his beautiful wife, Mary. Calvin McRae, the smart and clever boy next door, and Emerson became fast friends. They spent many happy hours together in that converted spring house.
What can I do to help today, Mr. Chadwick?
Well, I'm making a chair for Mary's birthday. You can take these legs and rub them down with sandpaper. I'll chisel out the grooves to fit.
Calvin spent more and more time in the little workshop, and he and Emerson became great friends, even though there were 10 years' difference in their ages.
Come over tomorrow morning, and we can start making the chest for your mom. I've got some pretty cherry wood that'll make a lovely chest.
Well, I can't, Mr. Chadwick, not tomorrow.
Are you going away?
Well, tomorrow morning I'll be in church.
Oh, I see. I'd forgotten about that. Well, I will say one thing, Calvin. If being a Christian and going to church makes people as kind and friendly and helpful as you and your folks are, then I say everybody should be Christians.
There came a day when another joy was added to the Chadwick home. A lovely baby girl whom they named Alice filled their lives with new happiness. Calvin and little Alice, from the very first, took to each other as naturally as water runs downhill. Calvin spent many hours holding little Alice and entertaining her. One night, Emerson awoke in the middle of the night to see Mary bending over him, weeping.
Oh, it's little Alice. She's dying. Get up and go for the doctor.
Alice is dying?
Oh, hurry and get the doctor or it'll be too late.
Emerson was out of bed in an instant and beside the crib. The baby's breathing was loud and laborious. Pulling a coat hurriedly over his pajamas, Emerson rushed to the nearby fire station and phoned for Dr. Langston.
And hurry, doctor. Please hurry or it'll be too late.
On the way back, on an impulse, he ran to the McRae's door and knocked impatiently.
Mrs. McRae's a good neighbor and a Christian. Or maybe she can help little Alice until the doctor gets here. Mrs. McRae, baby Alice is sick and about to die. I've called the doctor, but it may be too late when he gets there. Will you come over, please?
Little Alice probably has the croup. Get all the extra sheets you have. Woolen cloths, towels and washcloth, and plenty of hot water. I'll be right over.
Soon Mrs. McRae was making a tent of woolen cloths. She lighted the kerosene heater Calvin had brought and set a boiling tea kettle in such a way that the steam entered the tent where little Alice was struggling for breath. By the time the doctor arrived, little Alice was breathing easier.
I'll tell you frankly, Mrs. Chadwick, Mrs. McRae has saved your baby. I came as fast as I could, but I was working over Mr. Bender, who had another heart attack. If you had done nothing till I came, it would have been, well, too late. You can thank your lucky stars for a neighbor like Mrs. McRae.
We thank God for her.
And Calvin.
Now, more than ever, little Alice and Calvin were fast friends. And more, Calvin helped Mr. Chadwick in that little springhouse workshop of his, spending much time in serious talk.
Oh, it doesn't seem natural, Calvin, for a big boy like you to spend so much time with little Alice and me. I never see you running around with the other boys. Well, it seems like you'd want a chum or a pal of your own age.
Well, Mr. Chadwick, it's like this. I don't believe it's right to run around and do some of the things the neighborhood gang of boys are doing. You know that nice old lady, the one who sells apples from a cart? Well, some of the fellows have been making her life miserable. Today they pushed the cart over. I helped her set it up again and picked up the apples. Someone, I don't know who, reported the boys and they were arrested. Just a minute ago on the way over here, just outside your gate, Hodge Phillips stopped me and warned me that the boys are out to get me.
Was he serious? Really serious?
Well, I guess so, Mrs. Chadwick. He pulled out a gun and said they'd even use that to get even with me if necessary.
Well, have you reported it to the police?
No, Mr. Chadwick, I didn't. I'm not afraid of what they might do to me. Well, I gotta go, Mr. Chadwick.
Well, you come again real soon, Calvin.
I will, Mr. Chadwick. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Calvin.
Good night.
He's one of the best boys and Christians in all the world.
He surely is. Wonderful neighbors, the entire family. Why, they... Oh, what was that?
It sounded like a shot.
Calvin!
Oh, no.
The tragic death of Calvin caused Emerson and Mary Chadwick to do some serious thinking and talking together.
Calvin was a real Christian. He had a definite purpose in life. I will never forget how kind and thoughtful he was. Wherever he went or whatever he did, he radiated sunshine. Mary, I'm determined that Calvin shall not have died in vain. In exchange for Calvin's death, I shall live. Live for Christ and for others, even as Calvin did.
I'm with you, Emerson. Together, we will live useful lives for Christ.